On this Wednesday night from Quebec City, Quebec sovereigntists putting Canada first. How the shadow of the U.S. president is influencing voters here.
There was a lot of anger directed at Donald Trump.
The Liberals' goal to make gains in battleground BC.
I'm asking you to vote with me.
As the Conservatives try to capture centrist voters.
Change.
The first day of testimony at the sex assault trial of 5 former World Junior hockey players. The graphic details presented in court. And paying respects to Pope Francis.
It's good to be here with our family. And,
this is a historic event.
The Canadians among the pilgrims in long lineups at St. Peter's Basilica.
Global National with Donna Friesen, reporting tonight from Quebec City.
Good evening and thanks for joining us. With days to go until the federal election, we are exploring how the political climate has changed here in Quebec. Before President Trump took office, the Bloc Québécois, a party devoted to Quebec sovereignty, was far ahead in the polls. Now, you only have to look in some shop windows to see what's changed. Canada is not for sale, and Never 51 merchandise is front and center. The owner of one Quebec City shop told us it's the first time he's had Canada-only stuff on display, and he says it is flying off the shelves.
I think Mark Carney has a better chance against Trump. Well, at least he's not afraid of Trump.
On a besoin d'unité aussi à travers le Canada.
We need all of Canada to be united, to be stronger, this woman says. In the last federal election, the Bloc Québécois and the Liberals split most of Quebec's 78 seats. This time, opinion polls suggest Bloc support has softened, and the Liberals could pick up a handful of ridings, including in and around Montreal. The Tories are expected to gain a few seats, too. Mike Armstrong has our top story on how allegiances have shifted. Mike.
Well, Donna, this province has had for several decades a sizable separatist movement, but there are signs right now sovereignty may be taking a bit of a backseat to solidarity. The needles in this flag factory may be pointing in a political direction. In the first tumultuous weeks of Donald Trump's tariffs and threats to Canadian sovereignty, this Quebec City company got a boost in sales. Orders of Canadian flags jumped more than 20%.
C'est sûr que c'est inquiétant, là.
Richard Lacasse is a real estate agent north of Montreal. He says as a sovereignist, he's always voted Bloc Québécois.
Toujours.
This time, he's shocking even himself and voting Liberal.
Ah, je l'aurais pas cru.
If you'd told me 6 months ago, he says, I wouldn't have believed you.
He has had a significant impact.
Pollster Sébastien Dallaire says it's hard to miss the long shadow Donald Trump is casting in Quebec. A recent Léger poll found 2/3 in the province say their vote has been influenced by the noise out of the U.S. Dallaire says the Bloc in particular is bleeding support in one direction.
Every time Donald Trump becomes front and center, it reinforces the dynamic that has been very helpful for Mark Carney so far.
Now, in past elections, swings in Quebec have been about popularity or charisma. Not this time. When Léger asked which leader would you most want to have over for dinner at your home, the top answer was none of them.
It's not a campaign where any politician is really shining or creating momentum.
What appears to be happening is even some sovereignists see a more unified, bigger Team Canada as the better option in the time of Trump. In fact, Léger found support for Quebec separation earlier this year at just 29%, the lowest point it's ever measured.
There was a lot of anger directed at Donald Trump at a personal level, but it was very strong patriotism. It's still there, but I think the emotions have settled down a little bit.
The reason Liberal supporters, according to Dallaire, say they're supporting Mark Carney to go up against Trump is that he was a banker. The second reason is that they see him as calm. Now, none of those qualities are particularly inspiring. In a normal election, Dallaire says they'd likely be weaknesses, but they're not necessarily in an election where Quebecers are worrying about their wallets. Donna?
Okay, Mike, remind us how politically volatile Quebec can be federally. There have been some big swings here in recent years.
Yeah, it's kind of our thing. In 2011, you had the orange wave with Jack Layton. In 2015, you had a young Justin Trudeau winning 2/3 of seats in this province. There was a swing this time, it would appear. It just might have come before the election and from an external force, that American president.
And now, Mike, there's this curious thing happening where voters who want to leave Canada are supporting the candidate who's promising to build a stronger and more united Canada.
That is happening. You hear about it on the street. You hear it on talk radio. That real estate agent in my story is not alone. But here's something to note. It may be temporary. That real estate agent actually said he's looking forward already to the next election so he can go back to voting Bloc Québécois. Donna?
Okay, Mike Armstrong, thanks. And I know you're going to be back a little later, Mike, with a story about a Quebec company that straddles the Canada-U.S. border. I mean, right on the border. I look forward to that. Thanks. The leader of the Bloc Québécois has pivoted his message in the final days of the campaign. Yves-François Blanchet says he believes Mark Carney will be the next prime minister, no matter how many seats the Bloc Québécois win. And he's appealing to Quebec voters to give him the balance of power in what could be a Liberal minority government.
Que le Canada fasse ce qu'il veut, qu'ils aient davantage un sentiment de sécurité si M. Carney est Premier ministre, ainsi soit-il.
Let Canada do what it wants, Blanchet said today as he campaigned. Let them have a greater sense of security if Mr. Carney is Prime Minister. The leader of the New Democrats is also openly acknowledging he expects the Liberals to win, and Jagmeet Singh is appealing to NDP supporters not to switch to the Liberals if they want to avoid what he calls a Liberal supermajority.
People have rejected Pierre Poilievre, and I think that's pretty clear. He's not going to win this election. But do you want Mark Carney to have all the power? What do you think is going to happen if Mark Carney has all the power?
During a campaign stop in Edmonton, Singh urged NDP voters to stick with the party, pointing to its success in pushing the minority Liberal government to bringing in dental care, pharmacare, and worker protections. One of the places where New Democrats are vulnerable is Vancouver Island. The Liberal leader made several stops there today. The Conservative leader was in battleground ridings in Ontario. We'll get to that in just a moment, but first, Mackenzie Gray is traveling with the Liberal campaign. Mackenzie.
For the second time this campaign, Mark Carney has come to Victoria, Donna, playing offense in 3 NDP ridings, trying to consolidate progressive voters.
To use an NDP term, if I may, Sarah said NDP for the first time in the campaign. My government.
He might not talk about them much, but Mark Carney made a direct appeal to BC New Democrats.
I'm asking you to vote with me for positive reasons, regardless of which party you voted for and supported in the past.
Polls suggest progressive voters are flocking from the NDP to the Liberals, which has turned traditional 3-way races in BC into a tight fight between the Liberals and Conservatives, leaving the New Democrats to try and save the political furniture in the province where they have the most seats.
Well, we want Canadians to know that while people have rejected the Conservatives, you can't give all the power to Mark Carney, because what happens when Liberals have all the power, they ignore people.
Jagmeet Singh's pitch so far hasn't worked, with the NDP languishing in single-digit support, leading New Democrat insiders to tell Global News they're expecting some multi-term MPs to lose seats Monday night.
People are so scared that, they don't, if they don't want the Conservatives to get in, they think that the only option is to vote Liberal.
Singh's great hope, according to internal NDP polls, is actually the Liberals pulling away and showing they'll win a majority on Election Day, which would allow progressive voters worried about Pierre Poilievre to come back to the New Democrats.
Majoritaire libéral!
Melanie Joly asked for a majority at a rally Tuesday night in Montreal, but Carney ducked the word completely in BC.
Are you asking for a majority government?
I'm asking for a series of single votes from Canadians for a Liberal Party.
While there is optimism from the New Democrats that they can keep official party status, who would lead the party in Parliament is less clear, with the NDP worried that Jagmeet Singh could not only lose his seat, but end up finishing third.
I'm Taria Isri covering the Conservatives in Hamilton, Ontario, where Pierre Poilievre is trying to win over swing voters by focusing on affordability issues and crime. Playing to the center. That's often how Canadian elections are won.
It comes down to one word: change.
Poilievre has spent the last few days jockeying for suburban Toronto and Hamilton votes.
Nothing has become a more profound symbol of the lost Liberal decade.
The Conservative leader is vowing to give police more powers to remove tent cities. He's also promising to rein in government spending.
Mark Carney's platform is reckless and irresponsible.
Carney accuses his Conservative rival of planning cuts to services.
Absolutely standing behind $10 a day childcare in Ontario and across this country. Dental care, we're supporting that, and we'll continue to do so.
Poilievre says he'd honor existing agreements. Ontario's childcare deal is set to expire next year. The province's education minister sent an open letter the same day Poilievre released his platform, asking for an extension and more funding.
We need a firm commitment.
Polls show Ontario voters who just 2 months ago handed Progressive Conservatives a majority provincially may not be ready to do the same for the federal Tories.
For the Conservatives to have any shot at toppling the Liberal government, they're going to need to improve their position in Ontario.
We have a plan for change.
Some of Poilievre's supporters in the GTA fear another Liberal victory.
I'm hoping that the polls are wrong.
They're forgetting some of the past of what the current party has done.
This is Poilievre's second campaign stop in Hamilton, a city where there are often three-way battles between the Conservatives, Liberals, and NDP. But things could be different this time around in an election shaping up to be a two-way race. Donna?
All right, Turia Isri, thanks. We'll have full coverage of the federal election on Monday. Decision Canada will be live starting at 7 Eastern, 4 Pacific on Global and on all our streaming platforms. There's some breaking news about Hudson's Bay. The company will start selling off merchandise from the 6 stores it had hoped to spare from liquidation. In a legal affidavit, the Bay says sales at those 6 stores will start on Friday because it says there is a low probability that it will find a buyer for those locations. The Bay received court permission last month to liquidate its 90 locations. Opening statements at the sex assault trial of 5 hockey players coming up. The case laid out to the jury. This is the Fairmont Chateau Frontenac, a prominent Quebec City landmark for more than a century. We're back in a moment. This was day 2 of the trial of 5 former members of Canada's 2018 World Junior Hockey team. They're accused of sexually assaulting a woman in a London, Ontario hotel room. They have all pleaded not guilty. Today, the prosecution gave jurors an overview of the evidence they can expect to hear, which the Crown says is centered on consent. Jeff Semple was in the court, and a warning some of the content is graphic.
The 5 accused, former members of Canada's World Junior Hockey team, arrived in court for the first day of testimony, facing allegations of sexual assault. And for the first time, the Crown outlined its case against them.
I think it's going to be a challenging trial to watch. I think that the young woman who is coming forward is incredibly brave, and I think the stakes are very, very high.
In her opening statement, the assistant Crown attorney told the jury the case dates back to June 2018. Team Canada had won the World Junior Championship. A Hockey Canada gala was held at this London, Ontario bar. That's where the alleged victim met one of the players, Michael McLeod. The two left the bar and went to this nearby hotel. After having consensual sex at the hotel, the Crown says McLeod sent a text message to some of his Hockey Canada teammates inviting them to join, he said, to come quick to room 209. Over the next few hours, up to 9 other men allegedly arrived, and the accused took turns engaging in sexual acts with the woman. Identified as EM due to a publication ban protecting her identity. The Crown said EM will testify that she did not say no, nor did she physically resist, but that she was in this hotel room at age 20, intoxicated, and a group of large men that she did not know were speaking to each other as if she was not there, and then they started telling her to do certain things. She did not feel she had a choice in the matter. Under the criminal code, the Crown noted consent must be given for each sexual act at the time it is happening.
We talk about affirmative consent being, is this person interested in doing something? Not, did they say no or not say no?
The Crown also told the jury that they will see 2 short videos allegedly recorded by McLeod in the hotel in which the woman says, quote, "It was all consensual."
We would need to take into account the context.
This legal expert says it's not so simple.
It would be a circumstance in which she would feel very intimidated and threatened. And so in that context, women will often do what they need to do to get by, to survive the situation.
Of the 5 defendants, McLeod is the only one who's facing an additional charge of being party to the sexual assault because he allegedly assisted and encouraged his teammates to take part. That raises another question for legal experts who note that the 5 accused each have their own legal teams who aren't necessarily working together. They were teammates on the ice, Donna, but perhaps not in the courtroom.
All right, Jeff Semple at the courthouse in London, Ontario. Thanks. The retrial of Harvey Weinstein got underway today, a result of a U.S. appeals court throwing out his 2020 conviction. A new jury is taking a fresh look at rape and sexual assault allegations against the disgraced Hollywood producer. The case is what galvanized the Me Too movement. 2 of Weinstein's accusers are expected to testify again, and there's a new charge of sexually assaulting a woman in a Manhattan hotel in 2006. Weinstein has pleaded not guilty. Ahead, lying in state, thousands pay their respects to Pope Francis. This is Montmorency Falls on the edge of Quebec City, a roaring 80-meter descent into the St. Lawrence. We're back in a moment. Tens of thousands of mourners have lined up for hours to pay their respects to Pope Francis, whose body is lying in state inside St. Peter's Basilica at the Vatican. The Italian Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni was among those paying respects ahead of the funeral, which will take place Saturday. Redmond Shannon is there and reports on this solemn day of reflection.
A penultimate procession. The body of Pope Francis carried through St. Peter's Square, led by the College of Cardinals. Through a sea of cameras and a rising tide of applause. To lie in state at the papal altar of St. Peter's Basilica.
Over the next 3 days, thousands will line up to pay their respects to Pope Francis.
Queuing in the Roman sun, a group of pilgrims from Holy Spirit Parish in Stittsville, Ontario.
The day we were to fly to Rome, Monday in the morning, we heard that the Pope had passed. And so all our plans changed. It's because we came here to see him.
These Catholics say Francis listened to everyone, in particular during his 2-year public consultation on the future of the Church, the first synod in which women were allowed to vote.
There seemed to be more acceptance for difference, and there seemed to be an acceptance to have more women in the church.
Sister Crispina and Sister Jaya Maria were among those who watched the procession up close.
We was in the row which near to him, and we are very happy because our Papa is near to us.
For these nuns, the Pope holds a particularly special place. Just days before his death, Francis signed a decree, paving the way for the founder of their order, Mother Elishua Vakayil, to become a saint, one of his final formal acts as Pope.
Now she is becoming blessed. Papa Francesco, that is our very blessed moment.
It's now been confirmed that Canada's representative at Saturday's funeral will be Governor-General Mary Simon. And the Vatican says that given these huge crowds in St. Peter's Square, it's considering extending the hours for which the Basilica will be open between now and Friday. Donna?
All right, Redmond Shannon at the Vatican, thank you. If walls could talk, next, a business that's half in Canada, half in the U.S. Mike Armstrong visits a unique place caught in the tariff war. Canadians avoiding shopping and traveling in the U.S. are having an impact on American businesses, especially those that offer parcel pickup for Canadians just across the border. But in southwest Quebec, one company is weathering the storm. It's called Halfway House Freight Forwarding, and the hint is in the name. It straddles the border. Mike Armstrong went to find out exactly how that works.
You and I standing like this, we're not supposed to shake hands.
It's a gray area.
This is a cross-border conversation. The line between Canada and the U.S. runs right through Louis Patnaud's business, a former hotel that he'll admit has seen better days, built back in the early 1800s.
It was here before the line, that's why it's there.
Tell you what, meet you inside.
All right.
Now, there are 2 doors at Halfway House Freight Forwarding. Hello. One in Canada for customers and one in the US for deliveries. Packages that get picked up by Canadians.
Everything and anything. Amazon, eBay, Walmart, anything that can be shipped, we can take. Pretty much.
The business is located in a kind of buffer zone. It's in between Canada Customs and US Customs.
Alrighty.
Meaning customers like Sébastien Savard can have packages delivered to an American address, but pick them up for a small fee without officially entering the US. Although people do tend to cross over the line on the floor.
There you go.
When Savard leaves, he goes straight to Canada Customs and pays duty, in his case for truck parts.
Have a good one.
But he's not paying for delivery or brokerage fees.
I'm trying to not encourage the U.S. too much, but some stuff you don't have any choice. Like they're not available here. So,
how much do you think you save?
I don't know, probably a few hundred.
The building has been in Patnaud's family for 8 decades. Now retired, the money he takes in basically keeps the lights on and pays the taxes. He gets tax bills from both countries, by the way. In other incarnations, it's been a bar and a hotel, but it was also home. He grew up here and wants to keep it going.
It was a family business I didn't want. Like I used to tell Dad, I said, don't build a business for me when I retire. When I retire, I want to be able to enjoy life and travel. Well, I'm traveling from the house to here.
There is some nervousness about what comes next. How do tariffs affect the business? Well, the dream, Patnaud admits, is to win the lottery.
Alrighty.
Not to see the world, but to save the building that means so much. Mike Armstrong, Global News, Dundee, Quebec.
And that is Global National for this Wednesday. We leave you tonight with the Canadian flag flying over Old Quebec City. It's at half-mast to honor the late Pope Francis. I'm Donna Friesen. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.